There's been some controversy over the amount of injuries in the NFL, and some people are now speculating that it has to do with the electromagnetic fields that are around their practice facility and around Levi Stadium where they play their home games.
You can clearly see that there is a large substation adjacent to their facility, and that's going to put off a large electromagnetic field. If you have a powerful enough magnetic field on the outside of you, it's going to mess with the smaller magnetic fields inside of you. Magnetic fields affect biology.
You're seeing a trend of athletes wearing wired headphones. I got my AirPod Pros too, and then you'll hear someone else say you're microwaving your brain.
Is that true? Yes, it's 100% true. Fluoride is a mitochondrial toxin. Do not drink fluorinated water.
All right, we have David Herrera on the show today. And David, there's been some controversy over the amount of injuries in the NFL for the last couple of years, really. But one particular team is the 49ers. And I've been going to the 49ers games for the last couple of years. Huge fan. I know the strength coach very well. But unfortunately, they've had a lot of injuries. And some people are now speculating that it has to do with the electromagnetic fields that are around their practice facility and around Levi Stadium where they play their home games. So I was wondering if you can elaborate on this further, and is this woo-woo, or could there be something more serious going on?
I think there's definitely something very serious going on in terms of just snapping an aerial view of that stadium. You can clearly see that there is a large substation right adjacent to their facility. That's going to have a really large, low-level electromagnetic field, probably for a good, I would say at a minimum, a quarter mile, and I'm underestimating that. Just to kind of back up a little bit, I used to work in the oil field, with high-power stations and stuff like that, and energy supply systems, and there's
just try to get a little closer to the mic.
They are really powerful, especially when there's a lot of energy transformation going on. And
when you say energy transformation, what do you mean?
So the way that power lines work is they're functioning at a really, really high voltage, and then they have to go into a transformer to get stepped down in order for you to use it for your lights, right? Okay. So this is 120 volts, and the power line delivering it here is probably working at 300,000 volts.
Okay.
Right. And in order to do that, you have to dissipate that through this transformer, right? And that's going to put off a large electromagnetic field.
Got it.
And it's going to be a low-level electromagnetic field. And what that means is that it's going to pulse at 60 hertz. So 60 pulses per millisecond or whatever that hertz, pans out. And that's what's called low frequency. Right? Yeah. So it's a low-frequency electromagnetic field. And it's also magnetic. So let me just back up. When we talk about electromagnetic fields, you're actually talking about three different things, right? Because of how physics work. And that is, there is the electric field. And so that's the actual electricity that's being induced upon you. And the magnetic field. And one clear example of an electric field is wireless charging. That is an electric field. How do you think electricity gets from a little pad into your phone? It's electrically inducing it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's like more electromagnetic field coming off of that than when your phone is just sitting there by itself.
Correct. Yeah. If you just put your phone right here, no electromagnetic field. If there was a charging pad right here, put your phone there. Now there's a large electric field there.
I see.
That's going to charge that battery. Right. And so that's the electric field. And, power lines have an electric field, and they also have a magnetic field, right? So that's 90 degrees to the electric field. And the magnetic field does a lot with biology in terms of how your body is going to regenerate, how your body's going to produce energy and all of that, because it is a magnetic process of how you deliver oxygen to the mitochondria.
Okay.
Right. And so if you have a powerful enough magnetic field on the outside of you, it's going to mess with the smaller magnetic fields inside of you. And so you're not going to have good functioning mitochondria. And that means that you're not going to regenerate very well. If the magnetic field and electric field are strong enough, you're going to even become slightly dehydrated at the cellular level, which is going to the point of what we're talking about with this football team, which is more than likely their collagen, tendon, ligament systems which are normally hydrated by the high amounts of mitochondria in them, are not able to produce enough cellular water to keep these tendon and ligaments supple and flexible and hydrated.
So it's not normal hydration that you would just get from regular plain water or from having electrolytes and so forth.
No, this is cellular water. So if you were to look at a diagram of the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, you'll see that there is a distinct section called the electron transport chain, which is 4 cytochromes, right? And that is cytochrome 1 and 2, which are going to process the food, right? That's going to be fats and carbs. And then the other 2 are transporting that electron over to cytochrome 4. And people know this. You get taught this in school, right? In high school and stuff like that, that oxygen goes in there and the electrons come across, and then you make CO2, which you breathe out, and water. And then ATP at the 5th cytochrome, which is ATPase. But it's that ATPase is not part of the electron transport chain. A lot of people in their minds, they connect them, but that's where haplotypes come in. So uncoupled haplotypes and coupled haplotypes means that the electron transport chain directly affects the ATPase more readily, so it's more coupled. And an uncoupled haplotype means that the ATPase is more separate. It functions on its own switching mechanism, right? You would be very coupled, right? More food equals more ATP for you more directly than him, which would be more uncoupled, right? And basically that has to do with heat production in the body.
Okay.
Right? And so, you know, Northern Europeans can survive in the cold more easily than people from Africa because they're more uncoupled. So that ATPase produces infrared light and heat and ATP just from getting cold without food, right? So it makes it so that you can survive cold, which would mean no food, very little food, by just getting cold, right? I'm not saying you can survive on cold alone. I'm saying it's an advantage.
And I want to mention something real quick. You know, people, I think it was a few years back, we asked you about the EMFs with like the 8 Sleep mattress, and you talked to us about that a few years back, right? Now more and more people like, and even before that, some people have been mentioning it, and people that were talking about it are like, there's no research, it's pseudoscience. Now I think recently, Chris Williamson's podcast, because he was sponsored by 8 Sleep, he was like, well, you know, they mentioned that if you just take the 8 Sleep thing and put it farther away from your bed, it'll be okay. Now it's starting to get more recognized. So the reason why I'm saying this is like, some people will hear you talking about this and be like, this is bullshit. But it wasn't even 8 or 9 years ago, people were saying red light therapy is bullshit. Now every single person's ranting and raving about red light therapy. So just be mindful, like, yes, you want your BS detectors on, but at the same time, like, be kind of open to this stuff if you're, you know,
some things do come and go, right? Like there's things that come and go. But a lot of times there's things that stick, you know? And so how do you know something's not going to stick? And so if there's just small habits that you can have throughout the day to get yourself away from electromagnetic fields that are potentially causing negative issues, I don't see, like, it just doesn't seem that hard to me, you know, getting your phone out of your room or some of these things. For some people, sometimes it is difficult. If it's like a doctor or someone that's on call all the time, maybe they have more difficulty figuring some of that out, but they can just get the phone away from their head, right? And put the phone on the other side of the room.
There's something called a landline.
Yeah, there you go.
You want us going back to the rotaries, huh?
I have a landline.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really need to get a hold of me, you can call me on it.
Oh, you use a cell phone though, right?
Yeah, I have a cell phone. Yeah,
Okay.
in my house, I have a landline. Right, like you know, kind of like the Matrix. It's the only way you can get out.
Right.
Cool. Were you going to ask something else about this, Mark?
I wanted to just carry on a little bit more about this.
Well, I wanted to. So we talked about the 2 electric fields, right? And I mentioned there were 3. So let me briefly talk about the third one, which is RF EMF, right? So electromagnetic field. There's the field component, and that's going to be RF. That's going to be microwave frequencies, radio wave frequencies, and those are all the things that he was talking about, which is your cell phone, your Wi-Fi router, your microwave in your house. A lot of people don't know that. Everybody kind of understands that your microwave is kind of dangerous, right? Or at least they should inertly understand that you don't want to be near it when it's on, right? I think people kind of understand. Well, that's the same frequency coming off your Wi-Fi antenna on your phone or your Wi-Fi router, right? So yes, it's less powered, but that doesn't mean there's no effect,
Yeah.
right? That it's not cooking you right now, right? It's just
Slow cooking.
yeah, yeah, right. That's a lot of the things that I try to teach people is that okay, you get talking about this type of stuff, and it quickly becomes kind of like the seed oil talk. Well, it's everywhere. How am I going to escape it? I'm like, maybe you can't escape all of it, but you can sure as heck minimize it, right?
Gotcha.
Because just like, the whole seed oil talk, maybe for you, the therapeutic dose, as far as like it doesn't, you can live a long, healthy life is just minimal, right? You can minimally interact with it. But if you're heavily interacting with it and it's hurting you, because you know the information, can start to figure out how to reduce that. Right? Just like if you're chronically inflamed and your diet is 70% seed oil,
Yeah.
you should probably aim to reduce that, right? And it's not, not zero. You probably won't get there in today's world, but you can get pretty close.
Yeah.
What is the term that people use? Maybe I'm getting it wrong, but they say like non-radiated EMF or something
Yeah,
like that.
non-ionizing.
Non-ionizing.
And all that means is that it's not immediately damaging DNA. So in other words, this is
That's what people will say is like, oh, it's not, non-iodized.
Yeah, non-ionizing, ionizing. And all that means is that, you expose somebody for a certain amount of time, an hour or whatever, and there is no measurable thing that changed your DNA. So in other words, it didn't hurt your DNA, right? That is non-ionizing. It didn't hurt your DNA. And I'm not saying it does. I'm saying that it changes cellular water networks, right? Coherent domains, right? And so a lot of people, let's talk about that a little bit, right? Especially with this whole thing about like, okay, well, how's it affecting tendon, ligament stuff is it's making them more dehydrated, right? So more dehydrated, everybody, a little bit stiffer. You put a little bit too much force through that tendon. Now it can snap more easily, that sort of stuff. But this goes further, right? This goes back to the healing, right? Because if these people don't live at the field, they just practice there, right? But if when they go home, they don't do anything to dissipate the electromagnetic field or rehydrate, maybe drinking some deuterium depleted water or anything like that,
Bless you.
that is going to augment their cellular processes, their coordination of the biological system for regeneration, which is dictated by circadian mechanisms,
Yep.
aren't going to function as well, right? Because you've dehydrated the cells internally. They didn't make that cellular water like they should have. And so now the medium that your body is using to communicate. So think of it this way, right? If we are trying to communicate with a space explorer on Mars,
Yeah.
the medium we're trying to communicate through is space, right? Well, if your liver or your tendon in your Achilles is trying to communicate with your brain that it's damaged and it needs extra repair, what is it going to have to communicate through? Water,
Yeah.
right? Your body's 70% water or more or less depending on your age. The medium of communication is water. And so if you're less hydrated, cellularly speaking, communication starts to fall. Now you get noise,
Yep.
right? So now the brain can't coordinate with other parts of the body to be able to repair you as quickly or as efficiently, right? So it's hitting you on two sides. It's direct damage in some if the field is strong enough, but if the field is weak enough, it could only be affecting water production and not necessarily physically damaging tendons and ligaments. But because it affected water production, it's physically limiting coherent communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brian, in the post that was on X, do you mind reading a little bit about what it said? This came from our buddy Andrew Z. He sent this over to me. Actually, he sent this over to me like a couple weeks back, and then this whole thing just sort of has kind of resurfaced. It's not going away.
Yeah, it says the San Francisco 49ers are statistically the most injured team in the NFL over the past decade. Since moving to Levi's Stadium in 2014, top 5 in adjusted games lost for 10 of 11 seasons, 7 to 8 full Achilles patellar ruptures, 40-plus major hamstring/calf tears, high ankle syndesmosis injuries in every single year. No other franchise comes close.
Now, there's a couple things to think about with the 49ers. Number one is they have played really well in the last several years. So they extend their season every year. So they play a little longer season than a lot of the other teams in the NFL because they make the playoffs. They've been in the Super Bowl, I think, multiple times since that time period. So there's other factors. There's other things going on. But I mean, well, what are are there any measures they could take to, like, they have any suggestions for maybe something they could try to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I will say, right? EMFs degrade melanin into dopamine, right? So you can actually, like, a stressor means you can rise to the occasion or die trying, right? So that's exactly what's going on right here, is the people who can't rise to the stressor get injured, and the ones that can are fluxing dopamine at an accelerated rate, which makes them excellent at coordination, excellent at the sport, because they're young and melanated, and they probably have arrived there uninjured and unencumbered by heavy electromagnetic field, or at least significantly less, right? Yeah. But if you arrive there already compromised because maybe you lived literally in the same city already, right? Then you're going to be more predisposed to an injury, right? So I'm not saying they can't perform well. I'm saying the highlight of that post nails it specifically. They're looking at dramatically increased injury rate. And that starts to expose the chink in the armor of humans and mammals, that electromagnetic fields damage you in a very specific kind of way that is going to make it so that you either feel on fire and are absolutely an animal for a short period of time. And if you can't, you get hurt, right? And things they could do, right? If you want to test this theory out, I mean, it's not like they're poor, right? Like a lot of people, that I have to deal with, have budgets. They probably have an infinite budget. Well, why don't you find a high school or a college that's not next to this thing and make it your permanent practice field for 6 months? Your injury rates would be reflected in 6 months. Or, I mean, that's a season, basically, right? So 1 season, we only practice there. We'll only have our home games at the home place, and see what your injury report comes back at after 1 season. If this truly is an electromagnetic field problem, you will notice a change in the trend. Because this is another thing about electromagnetic fields. They show themselves immediately when you remove them. In other words, if it is affecting you, the moment you remove it, within 2 or 3 months, you will know it.
This is stuff you've consulted people on many times. You've told me about cases that were really severe. And then you just asked someone and said, hey, do you have a little bit of money to, like, get away and to go somewhere where there's less of these, you don't have a cell tower across the street, and they go on vacation for 2-3 days, and they're like, my sleep was better.
Usually 2-3 weeks. Yeah.
2-3, okay.
Yeah. So when I say, do you have
take time? Okay.
Yeah, it takes some time, right? It's not immediate. Now, some people, right, depending on what it is, for example, we know this from other electromagnetic field studies. These are actual studies on single-celled organisms, specifically bacteria. We know that electromagnetic fields make them more toxic and make them replicate at an accelerated rate, right? And so if you happen to have a gut problem, and I determine that it's an electromagnetic field problem, yes, what you just stated, in 2 or 3 days, you're going to notice a change, because the problem is in your gut, where all of your major biome is. And so that bacteria is essentially getting angry, right? It's essentially getting angry and killing good bacteria, replicating bad bacteria, and making it more toxic. You remove that stressor, and it starts to equalize pretty quickly, because bacteria have a high rate of turnover.
Yeah.
Right. And so, in certain cases, 3 or 4 days will change a lot of the outcome.
The last thing I want to mention on this, and we can move on to another topic, but there's something else unique about that area. That's where the substation is. And you mentioned that the poles that they have for electricity and stuff, a lot of times are using wood because the metal gets eroded by the electromagnetic field. Is that right?
Yeah. And so, there could be, right? Like, I haven't physically been there to see it, but this could be already a known thing, is what I'm saying, by the electrician or the power company.
Yeah.
Right. Because you can't, if there's a large amount of electromagnetic field flux going on there, large enough that it's going to accelerate decay, you're not going to be able to use wood in there. It's going to, metal in there, because you're going to essentially rust it at a fast pace. So you have to use wood. And so it's one of the things that you could use to tell if, because the power company's not going to release this information. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to be a thing that you can just go ask them about. They'll know internally, but they're not going to tell anybody.
There's this right here that Ryan pulled up. I went to the 49ers practice fields with just a Gauss meter at 11 a.m. on a quiet Monday with well beyond peak load. It read 8.5 milligauss at the far edge of the field. Inside the facilities, weight room, film room, recovery areas, potentially 10 to 25 milligauss, spiking higher during peak grid demand. And then lastly, typical background exposure is 0.5 to 3 milligauss. So what does this tell you?
It has a very high magnetic field.
Okay.
Right. So that's why I opened with there's 3 magnetic fields: RF, which is cell phones, Wi-Fi, all the communication stuff. Yeah. And then there's the electric, charging your phone electrically or wirelessly. And then there's the magnetic field. And magnetic fields affect biology by far the fastest and quickest and to the greatest extent. That right there is a very large electromagnetic field, very large. If he tested that, right, and I believe him, right, I'm not I'm not going to go there and do the test if I don't have to. But the background, right now, that's I want to focus on this. The background, typical stuff of 0.5 to 3 milligauss, that's just like normal living in a city, right? Which is still high, by the way. Okay. You want, like, if there are studies outside of America on all of this stuff. One of them's coming from Canada. The recommended milligauss is 0.5 or less.
Jeez.
For your bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Because again, if there's any place where you should strive to make it zero,
your bedroom.
It should be your bedroom, because that's where you recover.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's how they have come up with the recommendations is, hey, in your bedroom, this is where it should be, where we really haven't been able to pick up biological effects at these levels. It doesn't mean that there is zero. It means that we can't really measure them. That's already a plus, right?
Yeah.
If you can't, even with the greatest equipment that you have right now, if you can't measure a change quite yet, you must, absent of result doesn't mean there's no result, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't assume that, nothing's happening, but we can't see it. So at least you should strive to get to there, right?
Yeah.
And at least do it in the bedroom.
Got it. Now, I gave Ryan a video because I want us to kind of talk about a little bit more about this EMF stuff, because you start seeing a lot of athletes, you're seeing a trend of athletes wearing wired headphones. And, I got my AirPod Pros too, and I'm wearing it on the plane. But then when I'm wearing it, I'm thinking about, David would tell me some shit about this, right? And you also, people will ask these questions to other professionals, PhDs, et cetera, and they'll say, it's so minimal, it doesn't even matter. It won't make any type of difference. And then you'll hear someone else say, you're microwaving your brain. So what should people be thinking about when it comes to this? And why are these athletes starting to do that?
Well, they've probably consulted with somebody kind of like me, number one, right? Not necessarily me, but people that know enough to say what you just said. You're microwaving your brain. Is that true? Yes, it's 100% true. Now,
the quality, the noise canceling.
Oh no!
Is it on popcorn mode or like regular?
Right, but that's what I'm saying, right? So go back. It is the same frequency as a microwave. So the wording, you're microwaving your brain, is 100% accurate. It is a microwave going through your brain. And then it's so minimal that it shouldn't matter. But what if you're using it for 4 or 5 hours a day?
I did that this past week.
Right? That's what I'm saying. And you do that every day or every other day, right? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Immediately.
I say the less you use it, the less offensive it is, right?
Yeah. And should you strive to go to zero? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Right?
If you have symptoms, then certainly. Right?
Exactly.
If you have migraines or you have some sort of...
Or it's how you make your living, right? Okay, we're talking about the athletes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, football players, headsets in the helmets, et cetera, right? So their living means that they got to keep their brain on and functioning 100% the moment they're on the field, right? Mm-hmm. So why would you go out of your way to erase... They're not going to get away from that in their helmet. You see, when they can't go to their boss and be like, hey, I don't want that in my helmet. So they can't go to zero. Physically impossible. It's part of their job.
Yeah.
right? So now, but they've been told the information, right? Just like I opened the podcast of, okay, you know the information now. What do you want to do about it? I'm like, well, I should probably reduce it everywhere else that I can so that when I have to use it, I can exploit it and not let it exploit me.
Yeah.
And this has been well known for a long time too, right? Like with electricians and various people that work on power lines and stuff, they have issued clothing that protects them. And I realize that what they're working on is way more powerful probably than the cell phone or the microwave. And so of course it makes sense that they would have that immediate protection. But these are things that have been around for a while, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've had electricity for 100 years plus now, right? And actively, power companies, right, hiring hundreds and thousands of people to, put power stations everywhere all over the country. Mm-hmm. And the companies, give you standard PPE, protective equipment. And that's mainly FR stuff, right? But they also have to hire electrical engineers. They also have to hire, every form of, I'm just a journeyman electrician just starting out to a full-fledged, PhD electrical engineer.
Yeah.
There's some really smart people that know electricity way better than the power company, right? And they, I don't, if I'm working with you, I don't want you to die. I want to provide you with as much life-saving information with something that you're working with every day that's dangerous.
Yes.
Right? And so through the chain, I wouldn't say like the official statement, right? Because it's not, but from the official people that know to other people on that same job, they know, hey, we work around electricity every day for 12 hours a day. This is going to affect you negatively in your life at some point. You're going to be more predisposed to cancer outcomes. We know that some of this stuff is affecting us in a way that the first time I heard about deuterium depleted water wasn't from Jack Cruz. It was from old electricians.
Oh.
That knew, hey, maybe drinking some deuterium depleted water every now and then, or 16 ounces, while you're here at work every day is probably not going to be a bad thing, right? And even going as far as, hey, if you have some money on the side, you should buy yourself some better protective equipment. I'm like, well, what do you mean? They're giving us FR and all of that. They're like, no. We're talking about, shielding clothing, like silver lace shielding clothing or gold lace shielding clothing, stuff that actually keeps the electromagnetic field on the outside of your body and doesn't penetrate you, right? That, again, not official statement from the power company.
Yeah.
It's official statement from the electrical engineer that I happen to be working with in that group or that team, right? And it's because they're really damn smart, right? And, if they go and tell, their boss about it, and then their boss tells the CEO about it, well, the first thing they're going to do is, well, is this guy a problem? Well, no. And if he is a problem, let's fire him. Because we don't want that to get out. We're in the job of providing electricity and making sure that it's safe, right?
Keeping our workers safe.
Right. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Like, are they gonna is he gonna die next year? And there's this saying, right? Electromagnetic fields and stuff like that, they don't kill you today. They kill you 10 years from now.
So just the last question for me on this. When it comes to the headphone thing, let's say somebody is using it chronically, as a majority of people that own wireless headphones they're using it all the time when they're working at the coffee shop, etc. What is simply put, so for a way that people can understand, what is like the potential long-term ramification of like 10, 20, 30, 40 years of use?
Potentially go take it to the final thought, a brain cancer.
Okay.
Right? 10, 20 years of use. I mean, I don't think you make it to 20 years of use.
Really?
Yeah, I think things.
Well, these wireless headphones are fairly if we're thinking about
what about young kids? Yeah, they have it in their ear all the time.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to say specifically about this, right? You won't make it to 5 or 6 years of consistent 6-hour use every day. There will be something that happens, right? So end point is you get a brain cancer, right? Do I think that's what's going to happen? No, there's going to be things way before that, right? And things like brain fog, things like blood sugar dysregulation.
Been a huge uptick in, I don't know how to say the word, tinnitus, I think it is.
Yep. That's exactly.
It's like a buzzing in your
ear. Yeah, buzzing in your ear. The reason for that is what I stated earlier, which is electromagnetic fields demyelinate you, right? So what is tinnitus? Tinnitus is your cochlea being demyelinated.
Oh, okay.
Now, when you go to the doctor, he's not going to tell you that other than, you've damaged your hearing and you're going to have this hearing in
It's basically like kind of bleaching it.
It's exactly what it's doing. Yeah, it's bleaching it. Now, if you don't believe me that it's bleaching it, just put a steak in the microwave and tell me what color it is when it comes out.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not a good looking steak.
No, it looks gray because any melanin in there got degraded. Now, is that a bad thing? Well, long term it is, but that's why I stated, right, like the 49ers, right, they may be getting a kind of a benefit training where they train, because anybody that can survive the injury rate is going to be an animal, because they're depleting melanin at an extraordinary rate. And melanin gets turned into byproducts that eventually turn into dopamine and adrenaline and noradrenaline, right? All the coordination and activity hormones.
Kind of like a superhero.
Basically, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, people think everything, right? Even the bad things have another, there's a heads and tails to everything, right? Even the bad things have a positive spin on them.
Yeah.
And even the positive things like glutathione use and things have a negative spin to things, right? It always is that. It never, ever can be one thing.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about deuterium depleted water. I think it can be pretty expensive, but the good news is for somebody to make some changes, if they're just drinking it here and there, a couple ounces, I think a day can really be helpful. Like, for example, that light water that's on the table that I got for you, I want to say that thing's like 11 or maybe even like $16 or something like that. There are cheaper brands, but it's not inexpensive. And then it's a glass bottle that I had delivered to my house. So it's like, okay, well, of course there's going to be a charge for it, right?
Yeah, this is by far the most expensive brand. It's the by far the most luxurious brand, because because they do offer it in a glass bottle. Everybody else is going to sell it in a plastic bottle. But I'm going to tell you right now, especially with plastic, microplastics, right? Good sauna, good sweating, you can get rid of that type of stuff easy. So being scared of drinking cheaper deuterium depleted water because of plastic bottles, if you're doing other things correctly, it doesn't really matter. But the deuterium depleted water itself is very valuable, because this could also be an intervention for the 49ers, right? Supply everybody with some deuterium depleted water. One liter every day is enough to deplete. Go ahead.
I just typed in deuterium depleted water on Amazon because I was like, okay, it's expensive. How expensive? I mean, I don't know if this is legitimately the cost. 8-pack for $430.
Oh, what brand is that?
This brand is, it's light water.
That's what I'm saying. That's the most expensive one, right? That's what I'm saying. You can get about that much water for half that price.
Okay.
From other brands, but that's what I'm saying. This is the bougiest water on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like, I think Ron and Charles Brook, they were going back and forth, and they found a very inexpensive brand, but I don't remember what it was. Do you remember what the brand was?
Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me after. No, I'm joking. If you know the brand, share it with people.
So I think the brand that you're referring to, because you might have sent me the link, is Drink Adams. I think Drink Adams. Now the problem is, they are advertising it for a cheap price, but it's still on pre-order, and it's been a year.
Oh, okay.
So can they deliver on that price? As of right now, they haven't.
Shout out to Charles Brook, by the way, because I think he's is figuring out a way to make some of his own or something like that.
I want to know when he does,
because he's got some sort of like nano bubble thing or something. I don't know. He's crazy. I don't know what the hell he's got going on.
Yeah. So back to the water, right? As far as an intervention, because of the dehydration effect happening at the mitochondrial level, the mitochondrial water that's being produced, or not being produced, I should say, is deuterium depleted. Can you reintroduce that into the body, right? If you drink enough of it, like you mentioned Ron, right? He reported back being,
he had changes. He had like legit changes that he saw.
Yeah, quite a few physiological changes in terms of relationship to dieting and training, and still being able to train like he was, an animal. And
for people who don't know who Ron is, he was the former CEO of Quest Nutrition, and he owns Legendary Foods.
Yeah,
so yeah.
And for a healthy person, right? So again, Ron is not these football players being interacted with by electromagnetic fields, but even for a normal person, now he went all out. He only drank deuterium depleted water. So he was drinking at least 2 of these every day, right? And in 21 days, right, so that's 3 weeks, he was noticing significant changes on VO2 max, significant changes on and all in a calorie deficit, right?
Jesus.
And
I think nitric oxide or something like that too, right?
yeah, and changes in nitric oxide production and all of that type of thing. And the reason is because
He was also measuring the deuterium in his body, right?
right, that's what I'm saying. In 21 days, so it happened really fast for him, but he only drank this water.
Yeah.
Right? In 21 days, he was fully deuterium depleted in his body. He measured a saliva swab. You can test how much deuterium is currently in your body, right? And so normal people are right around 140 to 150. That's not ideal, actually. Ideal is like 120. Now, you'll notice here this says 10. This is only 10 parts per million. It's really deuterium depleted. And that's what he was drinking, and he got his body down to 100, right? Which is actually like ideal biological functioning. Like say you're not, you live somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, and you just, are a farmer or rancher, you're probably walking around with a deuterium level of like 122, 120, something like that, right? And he got his way below that with this. And and what it does, right? Let's talk about what it does and why the body uses it versus normal water, right? Because normal water is about 150 parts per million.
Okay.
Right. And this is 10 parts per million. And the water that your body makes, depending on whether you're eating a lot more fat that's coming from ruminants, so, anything with more than one stomach, those fats are going to be more deuterium depleted, somewhere closer to like 110 parts per million or 100 parts per million. And so the further away from the equator you get, the natural water cycle of the earth depletes the water in that area. So for example, I live in Wyoming and I have a well. The well naturally in my area is at 130 parts per million. So that's like just barely 10 parts higher than optimal, right? So just drinking my normal well water already gives me an advantage to somebody who drinks 150 part per million tap water.
Yeah.
Right. But that's only water that's coming from the aquifer that's been deuterium depleted through the water cycle of the planet, right? The snow falling, filtering, et cetera, getting into the aquifer, all of that. The natural processes of how water gets into the aquifers in the ground naturally depletes that water the further you get away from because you have less sun, right? So, so this relates, everything intertwines, right? So let me explain how metabolism, right? The reason why this type of water is being used is to keep metabolism running appropriately. Metabolism can be ran at an accelerated rate with good sun. That can be reflected anecdotally, like when you go to a really sunny place and you spend a lot of time outside and you don't need food that much.
Dude, exactly. That's what happens to me in the summer.
right. Yeah, but you spend a lot of time outside. Right?
Yes.
That's not normal for people, right? In today's world, the average amount of time outside for the average person is somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. And it's usually not midday, right? But just like you said, right, in the summer, you tend to be able to eat you don't lose weight, or if you do, it's minimal. You have plenty of energy, and somehow you're eating less food. Chalk that up to the, calories in, calories out crowd, right? Now, the reason is because metabolism can be heightened when you have strong sun, because strong sun has a lot of infrared that keeps the ATPase spinning, and it facilitates more electron transport, right? And if you have more electron transport, do you have that diagram of the electron transport chain?
Yes, right here.
Yeah, just click on the one with the black letters there. Yeah, so right there, right at cytochrome 4, the pink one, that one is where water production is going to happen. You can see that H2O right there, the little arrow that's pointing down towards the green one there. That is where it's going to happen. And that cytochrome 4 is very, very sensitive to infrared light. And so it's going to augment water production, and the ATPase, the green thing right next to it, that makes ATP, it's also very sensitive to infrared light. It's a motor. It's actually spinning. And basically, when there's infrared light, you are going to make a lot of cellular water, this deuterium depleted water. And because deuterium is lighter than, deuterium is heavier than protium.
The way that I use methylene blue is very similar to the way that you're using it. I don't use it every day. I think things that push that button to change your mood, you might want to be a little cautious with it. In my opinion, and the feelings that I get from methylene blue, it does change my mood a little bit. It's a mood enhancer. When I go out and run, I feel like I do have a little bit more endurance. I do feel like I can breathe a little bit better, but that could also be, I've been training very hard as well, so it could be an adaptation to that as well. But as we've had, David Herrera and many other people have come on the show before, they basically just say methylene blue is a electron donor, and it allows the body to utilize energy just more efficiently. And I don't know if I can feel that per se, but I know that I feel better when I'm running, when I'm using methylene blue.
Yeah, post sessions of grappling, that's when I usually use. I use it 2 or 3 times a week. Post sessions of jiu-jitsu, I always feel like I have more energy, like much more energy than I typically have, which makes me understand that, if I did want to go for longer sessions, I could, but it also helps me understand that I'm going to be recovering better for my next session the next day, which is a big deal. But yeah, I think that if you guys, first off, this stuff is great because it's third-party tested. Methylene blue in other sources, like the stuff that you'll see on Amazon or like random websites, there's no regulation. So a lot of people have levels of toxicity from the supplement because it's not dosed correctly. And there are other things in that methylene blue. Again, this is something that is lab made. It's not, you know what I mean? So you got to be careful. And this is why we like using this stuff, because we know it's not going to mess us up.
You can go on their website. You can go on the Transcriptions website and you can get a report of the third-party tested methylene blue and double, triple check it for yourself. In addition to that, they have the Canatine, which I have not used that much, but when I have used it pre-workout, I did notice I get a zip from it. I think it has nicotine in it, along with a couple other things to go along with the methylene blue. So do yourselves a favor, check out Transcriptions, check out what they got. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.
Right. So basically there are 2 hydrogen molecules on this planet. There's a third one, but that's radioactive and it's only man-made.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. But basically you're talking about protium, which is just 1 electron and 1 proton. And then there's deuterium, and it's an electron, a proton, and a neutron in the middle. It's twice as heavy.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you have Earth and it's got a specific gravity pull, and you all of a sudden make it twice as big, more gravity pull.
Yeah.
Right. So if all of these atoms, because we're talking at the atomic level right here, right? If all of these atoms all of a sudden are being flooded with cellular water that's twice as gravitationally pulling, what is it going to do? It's going to slow down everything because now you have to fight more gravity, right? So when there's lots of deuterium depleted water being made, now all of a sudden that motor can spin faster because it's not being bound. It's not being gravitationally held. So now all of a sudden, more ATP, more water, you feel great. You don't need as many electrons coming from NADH or FADH, which is carbs and fats. You can eat less food, same energy output, same level of focus, same level of feeling good, as if in the winter when you get less sun, now you need a little more food to accomplish the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that is why the body always wants to keep the deuterium content in the cells at a specific amount. And it's usually lower than the water outside because fats are also deuterium depleted.
Okay.
Because they've already gone through another animal, right? And they have the same cellular process, right? And so they're immediately depositing fats on their body that can be used later, right? Everybody kind of understands fats are for the body to use at a later time, right? But if you're already going to go through the process of metabolism, you might as well make it deuterium depleted so that when you do use it later, you don't have to do that process again. So fats from animals already come deuterium depleted, which then that kind of dovetails into the whole seed oil thing, right? Is inflammatory process with seed oils and stuff like that is because plants don't deuterium deplete nearly as much.
So this would be another way that someone can, if they are around a lot of non-native EMF, they can sort of detox themselves with deuterium depleted water. And another method would be exactly what you're talking about here, right?
And for people that aren't clear, that means shifting your diet to having more deuterium depleted food sources. And that's mainly going to be animal fats. animal fats. And the animals that do it the best are the animals that have to be in the cold all the time. Right? Those are going to have more omega-3 fatty acids in them.
How do we get polar bear meat?
Yeah. Or cold water fish. Like that's cheap, right? That's super cheap.
Yeah.
Cold water fish, high amounts of DHA, omega-3s, and DHAs have a lot of electrons, right? And so basically fats that have more electrons, by default, if they're coming from an animal, are also going to have lower deuterium content, right?
I'm still eating my oysters.
Yeah. And so
Per your recommendation a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I eat a lot. By the way, actually, I'm curious. What are your thoughts on like the Costco oysters that are in that? Because I eat those a lot.
if they're in olive oil, I'm okay.
They're not in olive oil. They're in like I think they're in water.
If they're in water, they're
sometimes in
perfect.
water, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
If they're in water, totally fine.
Okay.
But it's hard to find
Sometimes
things
they
that
could-
are not in oil these days.
Sometimes
Yeah.
they can be in seed oils, but not normally oysters.
Yeah, the oysters from Costco are in water.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. But like sardines usually are packed in some kind of oil or
Yeah,
something like that.
I eat sardines all the time.
Yeah. So I just make sure it's olive oil and not,
Yeah.
and not,
It's olive oil.
yeah, as long as it's olive oil, because again, when I say seed oils, I want to be very specific. I'm talking specifically about linoleic acid.
Okay.
Right. So you can just look up, say, sunflower oil or soybean oil. And you can just ask, these days, ChatGPT or whatever, what's the linoleic acid content of this oil? And if it's greater than 10 or 12%, or, maybe max 20%, you should probably limit it. It should be kind of the whole EMF conversation. If you can get it to zero, good for you. And if you can't, you should get as low as you can.
Yeah. Since we're talking about water as is, deuterium depleted water is expensive. We talked about deuterium depleted foods, which people can figure that out. What other aspects of, because you got a lot of people talking about shifting the whole water in their household, changing all of that type of stuff. What do you do at your place when it comes to your water outside of the deuterium depleted water that you drink?
Right. So again, this is, because I've been able to construct my life in such a way that, I can live where I want to live, that I know these things, right? I've been able to kind of dovetail all of it together. So
Yeah.
I live in a place that's very rural. There's only like 200 people total.
Okay.
Right. And rules, because there's so little people, are kind of, there is kind of like municipal water, but you can drill your own well. Right? You just got to pay for it. Right. So
I'm like, okay, what are some other things outside of this expensive deuterium depleted water? Drill your own well. I know. I keep going.
yeah, but so I don't know how much it costs you for municipal water here, and not that you could do it in the middle of the Sacramento or whatever, right? But what I'm saying is, okay, it cost me $15,000 to drill a well. I never have to pay for water again.
That's awesome.
Forever.
That is awesome.
Right? And that water is coming from an aquifer about 300 feet in the ground or more. And I got it tested, because I wanted to make sure, before I drank it, that it didn't have bacteria and stuff in it, all the normal stuff that normal people would test it for.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I got it tested for deuterium as well. And so my came back at 130 parts per million, which is really good.
Yeah.
And nothing really in it other than heavy sediments, right? Sand and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I have just a sand filter and particle filter in my house that filters the water for my drinking. And other than that, that's all I do for my water.
Okay.
Right? Like that's it.
Yeah.
Right? Because of where I was able to place my home.
Okay.
Now, for a normal person, right, that's not going to be able to do that.
Me.
Right? The first thing that I would say, before we even talk about deuterium depleted, because you're probably not going to be able to change that other than buying deuterium depleted water and adding it at the minimum that you can, right? 16 ounces a day at the, because like I said, if there's another company called Hydro Health or something like that, they sell pretty decently priced deuterium depleted water. I think for 16 ounces a day, every day, you would pay maybe like $200.
Okay.
Right. So it's not cheap.
Yeah.
That's an expensive supplement. But at 16 ounces a day, and you do that for as long as you can afford it, that's a game changer, especially for a high-end athlete or somebody that has, cancer or something like that. Like it's a thing that I would spend money on, is what I'm saying. Now, other than that, your actual water that you're going to drink the rest of the, for the rest of the water that you drink for the day, number one, make sure it's not fluorinated.
Okay.
That's number one, right? We know this now. This is not debatable. This actually has passed laws in several states that they're removing the fluorination capabilities of their facilities and all of that. There's at least 8 states that are now currently revamping that whole thing and removing fluoride from being put into water because it is a mitochondrial toxin. If you go back to that mitochondria transport chain, I'll explain it really quick as far as why fluoride is a mitochondrial toxin. It is more electronegative than oxygen. Oxygen is the second most electronegative molecule on the periodic table, and fluoride is the number 1. So what does that mean? Remember how I said there's electromagnetic fields in your body, and that's what dictates a lot of these things? Yeah. Well, one of the main electromagnetic fields is that ATPase. Anything that spins makes an electromagnetic field. Right? Okay. So think about it this way. There's a reason why it's constructed in that way. The green one right there is spinning. That's the ATPase. That means that there's going to be an electromagnetic field. You see the arrows at the bottom and at the top?
Yeah.
How they're curved?
Yes.
That's an electromagnetic field. If you just drew those semicircles all the way around and made the top ones meet the bottom ones, you've essentially drawn an electromagnetic field, right? And where is it going to intersect next to that pink one? It's going to that semicircle is going to intersect really close to that pink one. Okay. That's an electromagnetic field that's going to draw oxygen because it's electronegative, and this is a positive. It's going to boop, right? It's going to bring it right where it's supposed to come.
Yeah.
Well, what is more electronegative than oxygen?
Fluoride.
But it's twice as big.
Okay.
So now it's going to clog all of that up. Now you're not going to make cellular water because fluoride's not oxygen. So now you've dehydrated yourself and you've clogged up the mechanisms that make this all happen.
Yeah.
Fluoride is a mitochondrial toxin. Right? So that's the number 1 thing for your normal water. Do not drink fluorinated water.
I think you may have recommended it to me. It was something that you and I chatted about. I ordered a filter. It's called IKIN, I think it is. IKIN. Right. That's one that I have that I use. And it wasn't, I want to say it was like $500-600.
Yeah.
And I use it all the time. And I just take tap water, dump it in there, and then it filters it out. And it does 4 different things. One of the things was it does get rid of fluoride.
Yeah. People have known about this for a long time. It's just taken this long to be recognized by the powers to be that, hey, we can't hide it anymore. This is a mitochondrial toxin, and lots overwhelming evidence and overwhelming people have signed petitions for decades now, probably.
Yeah.
That fluoride needs to be removed.
And if something is filtering your water, sometimes people talk about remineralizing your water, right?
Yeah, and I mean, that's not necessarily good or bad as long as you're not adding fluoride to it, right? As long as you're not doing that, right? Like adding in, potassium, sodium, ions, all of those types of things back, like especially if you do like RO water, right? Like because that eliminates a lot of them, or drink distilled water, right? Then yeah, you're going to want electrolytes back in your water, right? That's depending on whether you're a performance person or not. That there's variations on how much, right?
So ditching the fluoride. What else can we do with our water?
But by the way, what's the name of that filter? Like the IKIN, how do you spell it? So
I think it's IKIN, I think.
There is a lot of them. What I'm saying is this, finding the special filter for the fluoride,
right. Yeah.
There's literally hundreds of them.
Okay.
Right? But all you got to do is make sure that they say specifically that they filter fluoride. Because this has been a known thing for decades now, this is actually pretty good technology. This is a known thing, and filter companies know this, and they cater to that, to that.
Yeah. That looks like what I got pretty much.
Yeah. And so all you need to do is,
and then it puts I think hydrogen back in the water or something.
Yeah, some of them get a little bit fancier, and they want to, say, they add hydrogen back in it. That type of stuff. If you could just, if you can get something cheaper and it doesn't have that, it's fine because it's not doing anything. Right? Like it's like, and that's why I'm glad that you brought that up. There's the whole craze right now of like hydrogen tablets and all of that. Well, guess what? They're missing this whole subject. Mm-hmm. I've asked every single one of the popular companies about, hydrogen tablets. Very first thing, because I have clients and everything. Hey, what do you think of the hydrogen tablets? What do you think of this hydrogen stimulator bottle, that you press the button and it hydrogenizes your water and all that. And then I email every company and I go, what's the deuterium content of your hydrogen? that you're using in your tablets? I have yet to get an answer back from any of them, which tells me one of two things. They either don't know and don't want to look stupid, or they do know and they know that I know this, right? Because it's not the hydrogen, it's what type of hydrogen.
Okay, so those hydrogen water bottles that are like doing the thing when you press the button, you don't think they're doing anything beneficial?
You pour this in it, and now look, this is what's going on. It's electrolysis, and they're taking the H out of the H2O and they're suspending it, right? If you put deuterium depleted water in it, then the hydrogen that comes off of it is protium, is deuterium depleted.
Yeah.
If you put normal water in there, you didn't change the type of hydrogen, you just put it in a different form.
Okay, so now so people are wasting their money if they get those bottles.
Yeah, or even worse, so they get the tablets, right? So now you can take perfectly good water, right? You know about this and you're drinking this and you're like, oh, I'm going to add a hydrogen tablet to it, right? And the hydrogen tablet's 150 parts per million hydrogen. So now you've taken a 10 parts per billion hydrogen and you put some tablets in there, or a bunch of them because you think more is better. And now you've raised the parts per million from 10, which is excellent, to maybe 100.
Wow.
Because you're not paying attention to the type of hydrogen. It matters the most. Protium is light hydrogen. That's what this mainly has. And deuterium is heavy hydrogen. It has that extra neutron molecule in there. And that slows down metabolism. So just, because these people that are selling you this, they're not actually lying. Right, they're telling you all these studies about hydrogen and all of that, and then when you go looking at them, the studies that show effect actively are talking about deuterium versus protium.
Okay.
And they just go, oh, this is just hydrogen.
Okay.
Well, there's a reason why there's two names. They're different. Know the difference.
So now, again, I want to make clarification, because so many companies now have hydrogen water bottles. All of that doesn't matter.
Not unless you can prove to me that it's got less deuterium in it than normal drinking water.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thomas DeLauer had a video recently where he was talking about a couple things that could really move the needle for like insulin resistance. And it was really interesting. And he talked about some studies for apple cider vinegar. And, I think it's great that Thomas has been researching so many of these things for so many years, and he sticks to the science. But if you notice, he's been evolving and he's been moving a little bit towards the red light stuff. He's been moving towards stuff that, again, people years ago thought were woo-woo, but now they're becoming more and more, there's more and more science to back up a lot of these things. But he was talking a lot about grounding and the benefits of grounding. And so since we already talked a lot about magnetism, we hit a bunch up on water. Let's kind of end this podcast talking about magnetism. And for everybody listening, we're doing multiple podcasts with David. So make sure you tune into every podcast that we do with him, because we're covering all kinds of ground, light cycles, dark cycles. The next podcast we'll talk about light. But anyway, if you can kind of clarify on that.
Yeah. So grounding and magnetism, right? So let's talk about this subject. Let's forget about the modern stuff that we've been talking about and just pretend you're a caveman, right? And so every morning you're going to get up, you're going to come outside of your cave or outside of your tent or whatever your shelter is, and you're going to be wearing natural materials, right? You're going to be wearing fur or cotton or linen, right?
Or nothing.
Or nothing, right?
Hey, now.
But more than likely, if you're going to be wearing something, right? People, again, I would be totally okay if you're completely naked, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, that's kind of my standard, but that's unrealistic for people, right? Yes. But I mentioned the natural materials because they all do the same thing, which is they naturally ground you, right? You're grounded to the ground. Why is that important? Because of the electric effect, right? The photoelectric effect by Einstein, right, dictates that you must have electrons in order to accept electrons, right? We're talking, and I know the next podcast is going to be about light, but we're talking about how the body functions with electromagnetic fields and all of that. Well, that's part of the photoelectric effect, right? There is electricity coming from the sun. That's how solar panels make electricity. the reason they make electricity is because they have materials and then they have a lot of electrons. And when the electrons from the sunlight hits them, the electrons get excited and then they drop down. That makes energy, makes electricity, right? You are exploiting that right now. And the biggest thing that exploits that is melanin, right? Melanin has a lot of electrons and it can accept a lot of photoelectric energy. That is a circuit that you're making, right? The negative is the planet. The positive is the sun, right? Anode and a cathode,
Okay.
right? If you talk a battery.
What does that mean? Oh, like a battery?
Yeah, like
Okay.
a car battery, right?
I got you.
Yeah, a car battery has an anode and has a cathode. Mainly it's going to be, two dissimilar metals. So one has more electrons than the other and the electrons flow in one direction, right? So in this battery that we're talking about, really big battery.
I feel like I'm a little kid all the time when I'm around David. I'm like, what's that mean? What's that?
Is going to be, right? The Earth is a major source of electrons.
Yeah.
So is water. So basically everything that you can touch on the planet that's not man-made gives you free electrons. And if you can make that connection better, bare feet or natural materials on your feet, then you're going to now make a proper connection to the negative. And now the positive is just the sun. So as long as your skin is not being blocked by synthetic clothing,
Yeah.
then you're going to induce this photoelectric effect and you're going to get a lot of free electrons and a lot of capabilities to assimilate UV light and infrared light without getting burned, right? So think of it this way. That's a lot of energy coming from the sun.
Yeah.
If you aren't capable of either, how would I say, dispersing it or dissipating it, that's probably a better word, then you're going to get burned, right? That's heat that's stuck on the surface.
Yeah.
Right? But what if you can prevent that from happening by two things, right? Like if I put a bunch of water on you, you're probably not going to burn very easily, right? Or if I cool you down,
Yeah.
you're not going to burn very easy because a sunburn is, in the word, it is a burn, right? Now, people think that just sunlight, right, strong sunlight, you're going to get burned. The answer is there are lots of variables that dictate whether you're going to get burned. Not just there is sunlight, I'm going to get burned, right? One of them is the temperature outside. If it's really cold, it's going to take a lot more sun to burn you.
Yeah.
Which can also be kind of dangerous because there's like a, being pale, being white, there's like a regulation in your body of like, you feel that warmth from the sun, you feel that heat.
Tingle.
Yeah, you feel that heat and you're like, I think I'm like getting fucked up from the sun right now. And you kind of feel it. But when it's colder out, it takes way longer to feel it. And then a lot of times people get burned. They go on a hike in Tahoe or something like that where there's high altitude and high UV and they get like smoked because they didn't, but they were out there for a long time, to your point.
Yeah, yeah. And so again, just like training, right? If you, again, because this is all passive, these are all called hormetic stressors, right? You don't really have, you don't do much thinking about it stressing you, right? So you can quickly overdo it, especially if you've never trained yourself. So I refer to like, if you've never trained biceps in your life and I ask you to do 100 bicep curls, you're going to hate me the next day.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's too much. Right, yeah. But if I asked you to do 10, a tenth of the amount, and over the course of 3 months, you work up to 100 reps, you're going to get a big bicep, right? It's the same thing with your skin, right? If you are pale and never go outside or always cover up or always use sunscreen, yeah, I'm not going to tell you to go outside for an hour. I'm going to tell you to go outside for 10 minutes, right? Go for 10 minutes. And you can visibly see this. You want to get to the point where you're just barely turning pink, right? Now, if you're, darker skinned and stuff, that's going to be a little bit harder to tell, but you have an advantage. You already have the melanin on the outside that can absorb a lot of energy. So you already aren't really the cohort that I'm talking to, right? But most people that are really pale or whatever, but I've seen African Americans that are pretty pale.
Oh no, absolutely. Like, this is the thing. I think when people think about melanin, my grandmother, by the way, was a few shades darker than Mark, just like slightly darker than Mark. But when she got in the sunlight, she can tan a lot. And I'm talking about my other grandmother, my dad's side, right? So there can be a lot of shades. But the thing is those people that are lighter skinned, they can get a lot darker when they get into more sunlight. So, it's just something to think about.
Yeah. And so the grounding is also a way to prevent the sunburn, right? Because now, going back to dissipating that energy, right? You don't want the energy to just hang out on the outside of you. Right?
Yeah.
So grounding is a fundamental part of making that electrical conductivity very easy to dissipate the excess energy you can't use, right? You can use way more energy than he can just by the color of your skin, right? The melanin that's on the outside of you. So that means as long as you're grounded and he's grounded, your body's going to regulate how much it takes, and whatever it can't gets dissipated to the ground.
Yeah.
He's going to dissipate more than you because he's a different color than you, right? Because if he's grounded.
This sounds totally racist, by the way.
But you're also going to absorb more vitamin D quicker than I will. I need to spend more time in the sun to get that amount.
I'm glad you brought that up because see, right? You say you both walk outside, you're both grounded. He's going to make his quota in about 30 to 40 minutes. Yep. You're going to need to spend 4 hours.
Yep.
Right.
So you're saying that we need to mate.
You stupid. But technically, like mixed kids,
have an advantage.
They do.
They have an advantage because usually they can exploit advantages and disadvantages of both, especially if they happen to get the right mixture of the genes, right? Where their skin is light but can get really dark, right? So now they get vitamin D production, and again, this is flat out, evolution, right? That's flat out evolution, right? The environment that you reproduce in starts to dictate.
Your skin can get very dark. I remember like when you first came to us.
I'm actually kind of pale right now, but it's wintertime where I live, right? But the moment I start getting lots of sun, I get really dark. I get really dark. When I was building my house or when I came back from El Salvador, I was at least 3
This
or 4
is probably the palest I've been in a long time. We haven't had any freaking sunlight around
Same here.
Yeah.
Like I can't wait for more sun. I want to fucking darken up.
We're dying over here.
But point being is that is the key component of grounding, is that it does that, right? Now, another key component of grounding, I want to touch on this because this relates to electromagnetic fields, which is, grounding pads indoors and grounding sheets and all of that. Here's the thing. Just like I mentioned that when you're grounded outside, you are now a better antenna for the cathode, which is the sun. If you are grounded indoors, you're now a better antenna for any electric fields inside. Yeah. You see what I mean? Yeah. So grounding indoors can be beneficial, but you must verify that your environment isn't giving you a non-native electromagnetic field. Like, for example, would I tell the 49ers that, they need to ground their field and everybody needs to be walking barefoot on that field? No, because there's a large magnetic field sitting right next to them that's now going to be more attracted to them, right? So that's a key part with the whole grounding thing, because there's that whole craze of grounding sheets and grounding pillowcases and, ground inside. If your house is pristine, it's probably beneficial.
Yes.
That you must verify that, right? You cannot guess, right? So that's another thing that I've done, right? Again, because I can do the things that I've done. I've essentially made a Faraday cage. Okay, I've shielded my house inside and out from electromagnetic fields that are just naturally in my walls from the electric wires, and the electromagnetic fields from the outside from cell phone towers or future cell phone towers or power lines. You walk in my house, you can't get cell phone service, right? It's zero non-native electromagnetic fields in my house. Now, at the same time, that's also potentially a problem because I can block the natural electromagnetic fields of the Schumann resonance. That relates to grounding, and I'll explain that. The Schumann resonance is the vibration, the hertz of the pole, basically call it the heartbeat of the earth.
Okay.
Right? And it's 7.86 or something like that, right? It varies a little bit. And that is your brain's alpha waves.
Okay.
And your heart too, right?
I'm not 100% sure on that. I've
like
heard
both
that.
of them are kind of tuned up.
They're tuned to that. And for the most part, there is a rhythm that the heart kind of defaults to, and it does have to relate with a natural rhythm. I can't remember if it's the Schumann resonance or if it's an octave of it or something like that. But alpha waves, I know with 100% certainty, are the Schumann resonance. So when you're essentially in a coma every night and you go into deep alpha wave sleep, that's about as dead as you can be, right? Without being dead, right? Well, if processes are so down-regulated, there needs to be kind of like a pacemaker. What is that pacemaker? The earth, right? That's why it defaults to that stage.
Yeah.
Right. So if I create a Faraday cage and I do it so good that I eliminate the Schumann resonance, now it's really low frequency and it's really big because it's the earth.
Yeah.
You'd have to really do a lot, right? But I didn't want to chance it. So what I did is my whole foundation is one big rock. I have about 200 yards of concrete. That's my foundation. And there is probably, I don't know, at least 1.5 tons of copper and metal in the concrete.
Wow.
And then I've put wires that go up into the room.
So your floor is grounded.
My floor is completely grounded so that when
And you've tested this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's right. So I've eliminated all electromagnetic fields that can come in, right? But I've amplified the electromagnetic fields that I do want, right? And so again, are you going to be able to do that? No, but this dives into that thing of like, oh, we want to ground. You start doing it indoors. Do not do it indoors unless you can verify that at least you don't have major human-made electromagnetic fields interacting with you.
Gotcha.
Some easier things people could do is, like, we're both wearing the same shoes. These are from a company called Grounds, and this has a copper thing in it. And this is something that you showed me on video where you tested it. You tested it with your son. And then I think it's helpful too to wear like cotton or some type of sock that is allowing you to accept the grounding, right?
And the key thing is natural materials.
Right.
It needs to come from an animal or a plant. As long as the materials that it's being made of come from an animal or a plant, it's going to transfer electrons fairly okay.
Sometimes with some of this stuff, I know you guys appreciate the patience over the years of people that followed the powerlifting and that now follow some of this and they're like, he's an asshole or he's changed too much or whatever. But some of these things that you mention and other people mention, I'm always just like, well, a lot of these things are easy enough steps for me to implement, even minus selling anything, even minus like the shoes or the socks or whatever. Even just going outside and getting on my lawn, and just getting my feet on the ground is something I try to do almost every single night.
Yeah.
And it's just something I implemented over the last couple of years. Super Brain mentioned it to me. You mentioned it to me. A couple other, Alex Kickle, I think, is another one. So it's like you keep hearing it and it's like, well, why don't I just try it?
Yeah.
And you try it and you're like, well, I do actually think I feel more relaxed between the red light glasses, a little bit of grounding, going outside, getting a little bit cold at night, looking at the moon. It's actually just enjoyable for me too. So I'm like, this doesn't hurt anything. This is easy enough for me to do.
Yeah.
Make a routine out of.
Yeah, exactly. And then the routine leads to consistency. Consistency leads to long-term outcomes, right? Long-term outcomes of, hey, I sleep really good all the time. I wake up with the sun, with energy all the time, right? Very few people can actually say those two things in the modern world.
Yeah.
Right? Like the number one thing is sleep problems. I can't fall asleep without melatonin. I can't fall asleep until midnight. I can't fall asleep unless the TV's on, right? Like, I'm like, well, why? Why do you need something to fall asleep? That seems so weird, right?
Yeah, you should just get tired, right?
Right. You should just,
I'm tired. I'm going to bed.
Now, I know we're about to finish this episode up, but this brings me back to something that I mentioned, and I want to ask you. You know, a lot of people, like 8 Sleep, they used to sponsor our podcast, and I still have my 8 Sleep that I use, and the temperature has positively allowed me to sleep better because I know I'm not sweating every time I wake up.
Yeah.
But in your opinion, what is the risk with that type of tool?
I think it's hackable. And what I mean by that is it's plugged into the wall. So there's clearly an electromagnetic field, right? You can shield that, right? There's material out there that you can shield the electrical circuitry so it's not impacting you, right? The temperature is a positive. I'm not saying that the temperature doesn't help you sleep. In fact, just like you said, hey, getting cold at night helps you sleep. Why? Because it makes you more sensitive to melatonin and raises melatonin production. And it keeps it producing longer, right? Like you get cold, and if you can keep it cold. Now for me, right, where I live, that's not a big deal because I can just open the window, right? And it's cold outside, right? And it's cold every night, even in the summer, because I live at high altitude. And so, depending on your situation, maybe an 8 sleep makes sense. You live in Florida, you live in California or Texas, right? That makes sense as far as the temperature regulation. And so then it becomes, what product can offer you a way to make that temperature change, but is hackable enough, meaning the components, the electrical components, aren't actually in the bed. They're a unit that's outside, or you can move.
Yeah.
If it offers that. Again, I haven't seen in detail an 8 sleep bed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like as far as like how it's set up.
Yeah, I have one that doesn't use any electromagnetic field stuff, but it doesn't use like Bluetooth or anything, but it is obviously plugged into the wall.
Right,
But
the chili pad?
It uses air. No, it's something. It's even different than that. I don't even.
But the chili
I
pad,
have to
actually,
look up what it is.
the chili pad, they've paid attention to the EMF thing. The chili pad doesn't have EMF issues.
Right.
So that's one
That's
aspect.
what I'm saying. So as the consumer, you buy the thing that makes the most sense, knowing this information, right? That's what I'm saying at the beginning of this podcast. It's not about, I got to get rid of everything. It's like, okay, no, you have the information now. Now you start choosing accordingly.
Yes.
Right? Choosing headphones accordingly, choosing, the bed accordingly, right? And so forth. But if you already have one, right, look into electromagnetic field shielding. There is something called building biologists. They can literally come into your house and measure all the electromagnetic fields, and there's material. We know how to build homes, or buildings, I should say specifically, that mitigate electromagnetic fields. Well, how do you think that people that work at imaging centers aren't walking out of there with cancer every 2 years? Because they have to build all of those rooms inside of that to shield it from electromagnetic fields.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We know how to do this. We just don't tell the public.
Too expensive.
Well, I mean, there's a cost, but not that much more.
Yeah.
If you're already building. Again, I used those materials to build my house. How do you think I made the Faraday cage?
Yep.
Right? I knew about this information, so when
And
I
that
built,
wasn't exponentially some crazy cost.
not to building the house normally. I was already going to build the house, right? So I just chose slightly different materials for certain parts of the build. They cost me maybe 10% more. And that was that. Now, a redo, right? A remodel, that's different, right? Because now you're paying double labor and stuff like that, right? So some of it makes sense to do, like I said, focus on the bedroom, right? If the bedroom is the place you focus on, well, now it becomes significantly more affordable than a whole house, right? And so point being, there's shielding material out there, and you could construct a box to have your electrical components to your 8 sleep bed to be shielded, so they're not affecting you.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like when you start knowing the information, you can quickly come up with solutions. You just got to think. Just got to think.
Tell people where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at The Solar Athlete. Also my personal Instagram, David Herrera 1119. Basically, that's where I'm going to do my lifting. And I do a podcast every week with my friend Eurus. And we have a podcast called Becoming Superhuman. And we put a bunch of shorts on that one. So it's my lifting and shorts there. And then the Solar Athlete has a lot more of like kind of the science about electromagnetic fields and is more focused towards this type of stuff, right? And then website is Solar Athlete.
And then you also have a company that offers some peptides and stuff too, right?
Yeah, it has
L-carnitine and some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean the way that that company came to be was not to sell the peptides. It was some of these peptides can be beneficial when you start optimizing mitochondria. If your mitochondria are not optimized, these peptides or L-carnitine, injectable L-carnitine, don't do anything, and some of them can be harmful. Right? I'm going to say that right now as a disclaimer, right? And so I don't actually advertise it. I mean, I'm glad that you said it, right? That I do have that and all of that, but I don't advertise it because if you don't know what you're doing, you can quickly abuse and destroy yourself. Just like with any other supplement. You can get liver damage from just normal supplements.
Yeah.
Right? If you're abusing them and don't know what you're doing, just normal stuff you can buy off the counter. So this is no different than that. And the reason why it exists is because friends tell friends, and I don't want them calling me.
Right.
You can just go to the website, and if you feel like you know enough, then that's on you as an adult to do what you want to do, right? And it's just L-carnitine, choline, that sort of stuff, and that's called DerelStrength.com, DEREL strength.com. And yeah, you can buy all of that stuff there.
Cool. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.